I've never seen one of these.
A piece of history pulled out of the ground, and you've been driving over it every day. What MoDOT dug up today.
Tim Wolf discusses the investigation into the rape of a student as a president and as a parent.
And hazardous waste could be right next door. There's a new way for you to find out. KOMU-8 News at 6 starts now.
From Studio 8A, coverage you can count on in high definition. This is KOMU-8 News at 6.
We are going to understand to its fullest extent what happened, and we will be better for it.
University of Missouri leaders talked to the news media for the first time since the Sasha Manu Corey ESPN story. The former Mizzou swimmer was allegedly raped and then later took her own life. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jem Reed.
And I'm Brittany Pieper. KOMU-8's Meredith Albert is live on the MU campus to tell us what UM System President Tim Wolf says the 4 campuses will do in response. Meredith? The U.S. Supreme Court stay of execution for Missouri death row inmate Herbert Smalls has now been lifted. Smalls was granted a stay late last night, just 3 hours before he was scheduled to die. The stay was to expire at midnight tonight, but was vacated by the Supreme Court this afternoon. He was sentenced to death for killing a St. Louis County man during a 1991 robbery. It is not clear yet how soon the state will proceed with his execution.
Today, state leaders at the Capitol were hashing out ways to pay for rebuilding the Fulton State Hospital. There's disagreement over where the money should come from. Governor Nixon proposed issuing $198 million in bonds. The bond money would come from an emergency funding source. On one side, a Columbia State representative says that's not the right solution, but the governor's budget director says the project has been put off way too long.
So continuing increasing challenges at the hospital that really make it important to go ahead and start the replacement process now.
He for 5 years was unwilling to answer a phone call about Fulton, and now it's such an emergency that we have to go to my next point, which is why a supplemental bill?
The budget office says if the proposal is approved, the new hospital would most likely be completed by late 2016 or early 2017.
A piece of the past is in the trash tonight. MoDOT replaced a relic early this afternoon, and workers say it will improve roads. KOMU-8's Devin Fastbinder was with those workers as they dug up something you won't typically find under highways anymore.
Like many highways, Route 179 in Montauk County had a culvert underneath it. And this is what a culvert looks like nowadays. It's made of steel or concrete, and as you can see, it's round. And its purpose is to let water go underneath the road instead of over top of it. But the culvert workers removed today was a little different. History may be in the trash, but here's why. This is actually a piece of the wooden culvert that workers removed today. And if you can see, I can easily bend this. It will split very easily. And more tells me it's not safe and not salvageable.
Dry conditions helped a small fire spread late this afternoon. It happened in northern Boone County near Sturgeon. Boone County Fire Captain Tom Putnam says the homeowner was burning leaves when his fire got away from him, traveled east across his property, and burned some of his shed. Putnam says the damage is minimal and no one was hurt. He has no estimate of the cost of the damage since the fire is still under investigation.
A hazardous waste zone could be in your backyard without your knowledge. Missouri's DNR drew an interactive map for Missourians to find hazardous waste sites. You can take a look. The red pins represent active hazardous sites. Yellow represent long-term sites. Green are the ones that have been cleaned up. KOMU-8's Morgan Huber visited a few of the sites in Columbia and joins us live to tell us what the neighbors are saying. 3 separate petitions to legalize marijuana have been approved for signatures. If approved, the petitions would allow Missourians to vote later this year about the production, sale, distribution, and consumption of marijuana by those who are at least 21. The petitions say state government could expect about $1 million in startup costs, but annual profits of more than $140 million. Representative Chris Kelly of Columbia filed a bill in the House today to tax and regulate marijuana. Senator Jason Holzman is expected to file a similar bill in the Missouri Senate.
The Miller County Sheriff's Department arrested and charged the secretary of the Village of Tuscumbia for stealing from the city. Cheryl Sears is charged with 4 counts of felony stealing for taking money from Tuscumbia's general revenue fund. Investigators say she paid herself more than her allotted salary. She's also currently held on a $22,000 cash bond in the Miller County Jail now.
30 more burglaries than last year were recorded during this year's winter break. Columbia police investigated 96 burglaries between December 14th and January 20th. That's up from 66 the year before. That number has been steadily increasing since 2009, with only a slight decrease last year. Police say the burglaries were not concentrated in any one particular area of town.
It was nice to warm up a little bit today, but Rosie says there is snow in the future. Let's check in with her at the weather desk.
We've got to talk about what's happening in the next 8 days in total, so we'll have that information coming up right after the break.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. These days, it's hard to hide what you're doing, but what about where you're doing it? How online peeping toms are checking in on you, whether you know it or not.